We are champions. Champions again for the third straight season. It's also our third straight season sweeping our opponents in the NBA Finals. It's also our second time with a perfect, lossless playoff run. Undefeated, 16-0, all the way to the title. The first three-peat since the early 2000s with Shaq and Kobe. This time, it's Boyd and Jovanovic. But today we move into kind of a new era because today we have a lot of things to go over that it's going to bring a lot of new life and hopefully some new competitiveness to this league and to this franchise series. The first of which is that going into this offseason, we will have two pending expansion franchises join our league. The Honolulu Breeze and the Pittsburgh Force. Obviously, you can tell which team's going to be in the West or Eastern Conference. But we're going to have the expansion draft today in this offseason. And we're going to see what players we lose to them. I did change the players protected back to 8. So every team can only protect 8 players on their roster, including us and the Sonics as well. That's going to be the biggest change by far. But one other thing I'm going to do is during the draft, I'm going to turn off trades during the lottery. So picks 1 through 16, there'll be no trade-ups, which means that, all the bad teams that were bad enough to get one of those top picks will be choosing a new prospect going forward to kind of revitalize their franchise. Because in years past, there's been anywhere from 3 to 6 trade-ups, including teams that already had top 5 picks or top 10 picks. So I just think that if I can get rid of those trades during the draft especially, then that will give a lot of bad teams a better chance to get better players, and for teams that are already good to not be adding high potential prospects that won't even get playing time. So that's kind of the goal there. And then I've got 5 handicaps for us as the Neptunes, which I think is going to be fair, and it's going to put us on par with the CPU teams. The first one is I'm not going to be trading up at all during the draft myself. So whenever we're on the clock, that's where we are on the clock. We have no draft picks this year, which is why I did not focus at all on prospects. We'll just skip over the draft this time. But we have no picks, but no more trade-ups for us in the draft, and we're not going to make any more trades at all unless we absolutely have to. It is a last resort for us. Everything else comes before that. We're also going to have no moratorium signings by the Neptunes, so no offers on the first 3 days. I usually don't even do this at all unless I'm trying to re-sign one player or two, but I think for now I'll do no moratorium signings or offers. I'm also going to do my best to keep the team under the salary cap and not go over as much as possible, but given the situation in terms of our contracts, we might have to go over just to bring in a couple of guys on veteran deals, but that's pretty much the only time where I would do that without absolutely having to fill out the roster. So going forward, we're going to try to keep ourselves under the salary cap completely. Our next handicap is going to be no custom playbooks or custom plays. And this is because last year, during the season, we really struggled a couple of times. Went back and forth at a couple of really close games. And that was before I added new plays to our playbook, before I changed our playbook. So going forward, I can still change the playbook, but I just can't add any extra plays. Whatever is already in there are the only plays as part of that playbook, and that is going to be it. And for our final adjustment, our final handicap, no defensive adjustments except for matchups at all throughout the entire season, which I wasn't even doing that at all for the last couple of years. So not sure how much that will help, but we're going to keep that as a handicap as well. These aren't really, huge handicaps, but it's just trying to make it more fair for all the other CPU teams. Now, the expansion draft will also kind of be a handicap because we're probably going to lose a player or two like Cole Anthony or somebody along those lines. Who knows? Not even sure when that draft would take place in the off-season, so I guess we're going to find out right now. Without further ado, let's dive right into the off-season. Advancing to July 3rd, 2030. And it looks like... where is the expansion draft? Top player retirements. Looks like AD is finally retired. Marcus Smart, D'Angelo Russell, Dennis Schroeder, Tyus Jones, and a bunch of pretty well-known role players that have all gotten too old to play. Big man coach Alton Slaughter has retired, so that is a spot to fill in our staff. Meanwhile, Anthony Davis does indeed make the Hall of Fame here in 2030 all by himself. He's going to have his number 23 for the Lakers retired. 21 and 10 across his career, 11 All-Star appearances, 1 title, 4 NBA first teams, 1 third team, and 5 all-defense selections. Congratulations. And he also gets his Lakers and Pelicans jerseys retired. Well-deserved, I think. In league meetings, we do see that the league expansion rule change has been approved, so we should have the draft this offseason, I think. And now it's there. Protect players plus the draft. Okay, cool. So now we've got the league realignment. We're going to keep Pittsburgh in the Atlantic Division over in the Eastern Conference. And Honolulu's going to join the Pacific Division in the West, which that makes perfect sense. So there you go. 2 new teams have been added officially. Now it's time for the draft lottery. The Bucks have the highest odds with Bulls, Rockets, Lakers tied for second most odds. We don't have a draft pick, as I have said once or twice already. The Cavaliers get the first overall pick. The Magic have pick 2. The Hornets are at 3. Pittsburgh, the Force, they have pick 5. And the Breeze have pick 6. The Bucks got absolutely screwed. So did the Lakers, too. And the Rockets, I think, all 3 teams had really high odds. And instead, they're in picks 7 through 10. So unlucky for them. The Magic have our 34th overall pick. I thought I would have to hire somebody else, but we've already replaced Louis Chapman by ourselves, which obviously was not my plan, but he's already there, so I guess we don't got to hire anybody new. Cool. That'll get us to the protection part of the expansion draft, and we only got, it's just pretty much, we got 9 guys on roster in total, so we can protect pretty much everybody except for Mark Augustine, and I think that makes sense. But then we obviously don't lose anybody to the expansion draft. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a bold move here. I'm going to allow Cole Anthony to be an option to be selected here, and I'm going to protect Augustine instead. And now for the draft, we're going to sim through the entire thing, but Jose Ramirez goes first overall. So a lot of guards being taken here early on. You got, after Ramirez, Malik Monk, Josh Chapman, Jaden Hardy, Roland Cassell, Quentin Grimes. So a lot of old faces. There goes Cole Anthony to the Pittsburgh Force in the 4th round. There's Bol, Jawan Strong from the Hornets, Pokasevsky, Bobby Portis. Pretty solid expansion draft. Getting through it here. Jalen Williams just got taken, not the power forward, but the center, Jalen Williams. Aaron Gordon was selected. I think that was Charles Justice or Corey Justice. There goes Zubats. Approaching the end of the draft. There goes Sabonis. He was not protected. And there you go. All 14 picks have been made for each team. And there you go. That'll take us to the draft. And because we have no picks, I'm going to sim right up to the draft summary instead of going through the first couple of picks. The first overall pick was an absolute machine. Billy Willis, 85 overall. With 6 badges. He's a 7'3" center. And this guy, the Cavaliers, another first-round pick in their history. And it's hard to miss with this guy available. So he's going to be a beast. At pick 2, you had Keith Mann being drafted by the Magic. He's got 11 badges and A- potential. Jose Pena, taken 3rd overall by the Hornets. A- potential. Sebastian Serb taken next. He's got high potential. And now the first 2 picks for the expansion teams. Jonathan Campbell, a center out of, I'm not sure where, but he gets drafted out of Utah State. A- potential. He's got 2 badges. Really good post defender. And then the Breeze also took a young center, 2 years younger than Campbell, and already better out of the draft. Ben Gilliard can already shoot the ball, but his potential is very low, so he's probably already at his max potential. And he had a couple of point guards go, including Gerald Geiger, Terry Morrison, a couple of other players down here. Paris Cross, 75 overall. He's got A- potential. Sean Jameson by the Trailblazers, B-, so a bit of a miss there on that selection. Ray Morgan, 6'6", shooting guard, B potential. Any other players to make note of? Oh, a 6 badge player here. Tensheng Yi out of China. Really good offensive player right out of the gates. Can pass and score. His potential is only a C despite the 6 badges. And nobody else to really make massive note of here in the first round. The Magic, with what would have been our pick, took Glenn Fuller, who looks like he's albino, and he's got C+ potential. In the second round, was there anybody special here? Doesn't really seem to be the case. Except for this guy, maybe. Al Perkins, 4 badges, pretty well-rounded, B+ potential, pretty solid pick there. That's pretty much it, though. And right now, I have had the draft class quality at 59 for pretty much the entire series, but I might up this right now to around 75, because I have noticed that besides Mac Boyd, AC Cole, Edward Anderson, maybe 1 other or 2 other players, there have not been any other, like, bona fide, star or superstar level players, kind of like, Anthony Edwards or guys like that. It's pretty much just like been 5 or 6 guys in total. So up this to like 80 or so, maybe that'll be better going forward, but maybe just gotta up this higher at the start of the franchise instead of later on. So we'll see about that, but I'm gonna keep it there. Rookie signings, we can skip through this. And then I am thinking about going through teams before we get to free agency and making trades for star players that maybe aren't happy where they're at, but that might take me a while, so we'll see about that. But for our team player options, we only got 1, and it's for Matthew Rhodes, which we are going to obviously accept because he's going to be hopefully a big part of this team's future. We're not going to extend a qualifying offer to Alexi Hammonds because he's just been pretty bad for us. So I just went through the entire NBA roster and I took notes of guys on the top 6 or 7 spots on their roster and if they were upset or not. And I found 14 players that matched that criteria. A couple of these guys like Pascal Siakam and Wendell Carter Jr. are on the same team right now with the Spurs. Just like Patrick Williams and Cason Wallace with the Hawks. So I think for those players, I am going to trade both of those when I take control. And I'll also probably be trading players away like Malachi Branham and Jalen Williams, but we'll see about that. Some of these guys just aren't happy where they're at right now. So I think it makes sense to have some trades that will kind of shift those guys' roles to different teams, hopefully. And these were all the moves. Cason Wallace traded from the Hawks to the Nets for Jonathan Jeffries. The Spurs traded Wendell Carter to the Raptors for Emmanuel Quickley and a second-round pick next year. The Spurs also traded Pascal Siakam for 2 draft picks from Philly. The Pelicans traded Jalen Williams to the Pacers for Sergio Munoz and Andre Ward. Meanwhile, the Pacers traded Malachi Branham prior to that to the Grizzlies in exchange for Ross Bell and a player-for-player swap. And those were the only moves that I made for these teams. So just trying to give teams position players where they don't really have anybody right now that they could use, and I got rid of guys that were taking up like a lot of depth space for younger players when they weren't even getting starting minutes. So that was the goal there. Now we can finally go into Moratorium and see who is available, and there are plenty of players here, including AC Cole, who is restricted, plus Luka Doncic, who is unrestricted. and he has no other offers right now. He's expecting about $60 million. He'll get a contract offer eventually. We've got a lot of money in cap holds. We will have about, looks like $22 million in cap to spend, so plenty of money to go around for some lower tier players. But we're going to let Moratorium shake out and see what happens. All right, Moratorium is finally over. We've got 12 million cap room, and now for the big signing so far. AC Cole does re-sign with the Warriors, and Luka does end up re-signing with the Kings to give him a 5-year huge offer, $330 million. Jabari Smith got less than that from Philly, but he returns there. Brandon Miller signs a 5-year deal to return to the Hornets. Jalen Brunson is heading back to the Dallas Mavericks after a couple years in New York. He's going back to where he used to play. That's a really cool storyline. Kristaps is heading to the OKC Thunder. We have a really strong roster already. Walker Kessler is leaving the Nets for the Timberwolves. Kyrie Irving signs a 1-year deal with the Spurs, who really needed a guard. So I'm glad that they signed a guard as one of their first moves. Matthew Oakley heading to Golden State. Timmy Hayes re-signs with Seattle. Kelly Hunter is now a Phoenix Sun, no longer with the Hawks, so they let him go. Brooke Neely, I believe, re-signs with the Nets. I think he was already there. Bobby Mays, same thing with the Thunder, and that's pretty much your top offers, your top signings so far. And now we can make some. We've only got 8 players on the roster right now and got to sign pretty much 6 to 7 new ones with $22 million only. So this is going to get a little tricky here, but that's the beauty of this new era. All right, so I'm thinking about going after first targeting a backup shooting guard, a backup small forward to play behind Boyd, and a backup center for behind Jalen Duren. Dort is here, but I'm kind of thinking about bringing in some new blood, some new faces. And Agbaji here is actually a better system match. He's 6'5", 4-star match. Once more than Dort, obviously. This would take up not quite a third, but just under a fourth, I think, or just over a fourth or so of our cap room left. And I think I'm going to make an offer for him. He doesn't have any other offers right now. So if you lower this a little bit, then he would take it. I'm definitely down for a multi-year deal with him because he's proven himself against us in several games. He's been really good. So I will offer this contract to him. Hopefully he takes it. Now for small forward, there are plenty of options here that we can afford. There is Christian Braun. If we make an offer to him, this would take up, or this plus the other offer would get us to about halfway done with our cap room. And he is a pretty good 3-point shooter, a pretty good shooter overall. He's coming off a year where he did shoot his best in his entire career from downtown at just below 40%, but only shot 43% from the field in total, but also barely played. Actually, no, he did not barely play. He had plenty of playing time and barely scored. I think I'll pass on him for now. There is also Wendell Moore Jr., who I'm definitely a fan of, and he's been impressive against us when we played against him. And he shot better. He's also a really good free throw shooter, which we could really use. That's been a problem for us for a while now. You could go after Wendell Moore. He wants even less money than Braun does, and he is the same system match, so I think that would make sense to bring in somebody like him. And then for centers, Capella is only a 3-star match, and I definitely want to move on from him because I want somebody who can be a bit better offensively. It says that he has B inside scoring, but that's just not true. Like you guys, we all watched all these years with him. That's just not the case. Could go after Ben Simmons, who, if you guys have watched my previous series, then you would know that before this one, he was an absolute menace to play against. Unfair. I'm not going to sign him, though. I think I would rather go for somebody like Charles Bassey, who is younger, a higher overall, maybe not as good, but is a better rebounder, good physicality, matches the system, and is a better shooter, obviously, than Ben Simmons. I think I'll go after Charles Bassey. I like him. He wants a minimum deal. We'll take it. Charles Bassey is going to sign his deal, so there's our first real signing here in free agency. We do end up signing Achua, and we also did give a deal out to EJ Liddell, who has been on this team for quite some time. He's kind of become the Udonis Haslem of our team, and I don't see why I would move on from him. I think he deserves to be on the roster. He didn't even get a single minute of playing time last year, so it's not going to show up on his career stats or anything. But he was on the team and in the league, so we're going to sign him back again. And Wendell Moore and Ochai Agbaji will accept their offers to join our team as some veteran players. Let's go. 2 big signings right there for us. And that means that we have only $4 million left in cap room and probably sign 1 or 2 more vet minimum deals to round out the salary cap and the roster as well. We're going to bring in Lonnie Walker on a vet minimum contract to be one of our backup small forwards. And we're also going to bring back Ryan Rollins, who was on this team 2 years ago, 3 years ago, never got any playing time, but now he's back to play the same exact role that he was before. Congrats. So now with negative $7,000 in cap, I'm going to keep it right there. We do have a full roster officially. At point guard, we've got Jovanovic, Ryan Rollins, and Wilson Towns. Probably going to give Towns playing time because he probably will progress a little bit. At shooting guard, we're going to have Anunoby, Agbaji, and Augustine. At small forward, and potentially power forward for Boyd, Moore, and Lonnie Walker. At power forward, Jonathan Kuminga, Matthew Rhodes, and Liddell. And then at center, Jalen Duren, Charles Bassey, and Precious Achua. And there is your new Neptunes team right there. We get all the way to day 12, and Lou Dort is now the top free agent, and he has no other offers right now, and now he's asking for the vet minimum, but I like the guys that we brought in. We have a full roster, so we're going to let him go on to greener pastures elsewhere. But for the other big signings that we did not get to yet, we've got Jaden Ivey returning to Milwaukee on a 5-year contract. We saw Jalen Brunson, saw these other ones. Saw Matthew Oakley and Timmy Hayes. Looks like Nick Smith Jr. leaves the Hornets finally for the Magic, taking a 3-year, $62 million contract offer. Dion Whitney is heading to the Knicks after playing in the Spurs for a long time and coming off a career best season. So he takes advantage of that performance and gets $35 million a year from the Knicks. Gary Trent Jr. heads over to the Lakers. Fred Jameson signs with Milwaukee. We saw Brooke Neely. Agbaji was probably our best signing of the offseason. Taylor Hendricks heads to the Brooklyn Nets on a 3-year deal. Isaiah Stewart to the Kings. Kyle Kuzma as well. John Collins is now a Raptor. We saw the May signing. The Timberwolves brought in Samuel Lynam, the top free agent small forward, at least when we were looking at small forward that we could afford. And then some other signings like Killian Hayes back with Detroit, Woolridge back with Boston, Denny Avdia signs with Minnesota, Capella signs a 1-year deal with the Miami Heat, or Jared Schultz returns to the Nuggets on a 3-year deal worth about $10 million per season. So those are your biggest signings this season, plus all those trades that we made as well. So there you go. Now here we go. Player progression, a big thing for every single team in the entire league, especially for us with Matthew Rhodes with that A+ potential. And he is now up to an 82 overall, and he still has the A+ potential. Wilson Towns also went up by a lot to a 76. So these guys will both definitely get a lot more playing time. And I am heavily considering playing Boyd back at shooting guard, which was his original position when he was first drafted. I think that would really open the floor up. That would let Kuminga stay at small forward and would let Rhodes come in as the power forward starter. You would have Jalen Duren at center and Jovanovic at point with OG now coming off the bench. I think that could really work for us. Kuminga goes up by 1, but pretty much stays the same. Nobody really gains too many more badges for our players, except for maybe Wilson Towns. Although it looks like he's pretty much the same as he was badge-wise, and so is Matthew Rhodes. So no big badge changes here, but really good progression for both of our young players, which is kind of what I was banking on, because I was not entirely sold on all these veterans keeping up where they're at. And Augustine and Liddell both actually went down by a lot, so it was good to get Towns and Rhodes some progression here. But, I mean, he got better in pretty much everything, especially three-point scoring is going to be huge. So he's going to have a much bigger role going into our next season. And Wilson Towns will probably stay up, hopefully. It won't be as bad as he was last year. Now, for teams across the league, did any other team get way better in terms of progression? The Nets got some help, while their roster is absolutely stacked. This looks like our roster from last year. Or even better, this is a crazy roster, dude. Holy hell. They're going to have a really thick bench, I'm not going to lie. So they look pretty good. For the Nuggets, Mitchell is regressing by a lot. Jokic also goes down by a little bit. But Glenn Carroll, 88 overall, still playing behind Jokic. Jokic has one more year left on his deal. Then he might retire. So I think I'm comfortable waiting one more year, because I think the whole Nuggets game plan here was to let Jokic retire and then have Carroll come right in as the starter. So not going to trade him away yet. The Pacers got a little bit better. Murray Bailey increased a little bit, but their roster is definitely not the best. The Pelicans got better across the board, it looks like. Some really good stuff there, especially for a couple of point guards. The Pistons really only improved for their top 8 guys on the roster. So good for them. The Raptors still have their big 3, and nobody really had too big of a jump. But the Rockets had Donnell Burke and Chuck Grant both improve very steadily. How about the Sonics? The Sonics still got Collins early and Ingram. A couple of guys got better, but they're going to be like a mid-tier playoff team most likely. The Spurs had a couple of players get better and one player get worse, with Kyrie over here now. But Junior Fleming, who we faced, gained some badges, goes up to a 79 overall. So does Anton Kiba. So they might be primed for a better season. The Suns brought in Kelly Hunter as their top option, and their roster kind of sucks. The Thunder, though, have quite the group here. Shea, Holmgren, Kristaps now, Jaden McDaniels, Lawrence Blackwell. Does Lawrence Blackwell deserve to get traded here soon? He is playing behind Chet. Who knows? The Timberwolves. They brought in Walker Kessler to be one of those bigs out down there with Cat. They had one player get better. The Blazers had several players go up, but their roster still needs work. But they got, after their big 3, they got a lot of young players that are trying to really come into their own. So they could be on track for a much better season. But the Warriors might be one of those teams that will be a problematic team to face. Their starting 5 is going to look a lot like ours. They got AC Cole and Devin Booker. And we lost to these guys. Don't forget, we lost to them. They got Buford up to an 86 overall. Oakley, who they signed, who's an 84. And then their power forward is going to be Keon Malone, who's up to an 83. Plus, they got Ruben May off the bench. The Warriors are one of those top teams that I think could really be similar to our team this next year. Obviously, I have no idea what is actually in store, but they're definitely a top team. The Wizards have a pretty well-rounded roster, but it's not, top of the line or anything. There's all players. The Sixers brought back Jabari Smith, obviously. They kept around Chip Hunt, who's now progressed over an 80 overall player. So they might be a solid team, but not really, game-breaking. Now, Honolulu was going to suck. They got Jose Ramirez as their best player. at an 80 overall. That's pretty much it. But we knew this coming in, that the Breeze and the Force would not be, you know, too good of a team for the first couple of years. The Bucks probably won't be very good. The Bulls might be decent. They got a solid bench, especially with Sadiq Bey, Nimhard, and Brett Patterson. And then the Cavaliers. So they obviously drafted Billy Willis first overall. They also signed Dalen Webb, so he's now over there, but they have a gnarly starting five with Garland, Zion, Billy Willis, Mikal Bridges now, and AJ Gilmore. So they could also be one of those really strong starting five teams. The Celtics had 5 different players really improve, all very young, and all will get plenty of playing time. The Clippers still have Cade Cunningham and Frederick Cousins. They might be worse than last year, honestly. Who knows? The Force are going to be as bad, if not worse, than the Breeze. The Grizzlies signed Jamal Murray to be their backup point guard, but he regresses. So does Lauri Markkanen. They still do have Tatum and Ja, though, but that's pretty much it, plus Malachi Branham, who they acquired via trade. We'll see about that. The Hawks had lots of players go up, like Zach Franklin, Terrell Wingate, and Mark Bledsoe, but their roster has really gone down the drain since the playoffs. The Heat, they don't look very good. The Hornets got worse by losing Nick Smith Jr., so that was a big loss for them, and their bench is going to be horrible. Ben Simmons is the 5th best player on their team, and he's on a vet minimum contract. What is going on here? The Jazz have 2 point guards, one of which will play shooting guard most likely. They'll be decent, I think. The Kings will be a really solid roster. They brought back Luka to a massive deal worth about, 56, 57 per season. They brought in a couple of new faces like Isaiah Stewart and Kyle Kuzma, so they should be a solid team. The Knicks will probably be decent, but not anything special. And then the Lakers had a lot of young players get better, but they still got a lot of room to work with until they're going to be, ready to play a bulk of these minutes. So they're going to be pretty bad. The Magic, interesting roster here. They got a pretty solid starting five, but no real, breakaway superstar. But their bench should be pretty solid, I think. The Mavericks obviously re-signed or really brought back Jalen Brunson after a couple of years in New York. Azor Thompson's still over here. It probably won't be very good. And then back to us. I think we still have one of the better rosters, but we definitely took a hit to our bench, but I think that was kind of accepted portion of this offseason because we kind of knew that was going to happen given the expansion draft and the lack of cap room. So there you go. There's your player progression and all the other teams too. We're not done yet, though. It's time to give some new accessories to our players, including Mac Boyd, who you guys asked for it. He's going to be wearing a headband going forward, but I can't decide if it should have the logo or not. Let me know where or if he should have a logo on his headband. Also going to change up the beard a little bit, I think. For the beard, I think with the headband, it looks better if Boyd goes back to his beard from 2 years ago. So going back to the slightly shorter beard, but now he's got a headband. There you go. For Jalen Duren, I think for him, I want to give him the Russell Westbrook treatment. And he's going to move to 2 different sleeves. 2 sleeves, if I can get the one with the logo on it to match the other one. Nike logo with white swoosh. There you go. So dual arm sleeves for Jalen Duren. I think for Matthew Rhodes, I want to change his knee pads to a little bit longer without the padding. So just a sleeve on either knee. I think that looks better. And a lot of folks wanted there to be a new look for Jovanovic. So what do we change his look to? Do we change the hair? I kind of like the hair, but if you guys want to see something different, then I'm all ears. Do we send him to the spiky fade this time? He had his first ever haircut was very similar to this, but wasn't the exact same. This would be kind of the shorter version of the messy spiked hair, which was the one for the last couple of seasons. You could also go longer with the hair, go parted X long, and then we've got the tousled, or tousled, however you say that, parted to long, pompadour. There are definitely some options for him. There's the high fade, but he would look kind of weird with this, I'm not going to lie. What do you guys want to see? I'm not going to really decide what I want specifically for this. You could go with the cropped 9 haircut, pretty similar to his current one. But I think for now, I'll probably choose the... What was it called? It wasn't the parted hard, it was the spiky fade. I think I'll choose this one for now. But there are other options. What about the facial hair? You guys obviously don't seem to like his current one. So what should he be rocking now? Should he be going back to the baby face? Should he get a longer beard? A more fuller beard? Like Boyd did for a little while? Should he rock the same beard as Boyd? Some scruff? What should Jovanovic look like? I can't decide. I kind of liked what he was rocking this year, but... Do we go with just a mustache? Do we go with a soul patch or something? I think I'll do facial hair 47 for now, so he looks, you know, as young as he actually is. He's only 24 years old. So he looks younger here. Does that look better? Obviously, you guys can choose what options we went over there and just let me know what you want to see, but I think for now I'll let him rock this hairstyle. And lastly, we got Wilson Towns, who's currently rocking like a chin strap beard, which I should have changed this right when he was drafted, man, because that looks horrible. I know that I just took off this facial hair for Jovanovic, but I think Towns looks pretty good with this facial hair, with this haircut. So I'm going to keep the cornrows, and we'll switch the facial hair for him. So now he's got a little bit of a different look. And we are going to open the season against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is exactly who I wanted to face, actually, because their roster's pretty damn good. They were a playoff team last year as well. They were the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Should be a very, very fun opening game. Before I forget, I am going to go back to the version 4 sliders that I was using before I made that change during the middle of the season. So we're going to go back to what we had before, because those are still pretty solid sliders. Also, right now, I do have trades completely off. I have the frequency at 0 right now, but I do plan to put that back up to 0 as we approach the trade deadline. But I do agree, or I back up to 100 as we approach the deadline. But I do agree with some of you guys that some of the CPU trades are really bad. So I'm thinking about turning on trade approval so that I can see and approve it or decline every trade that comes our way. But this also, if I turn this on, is going to pop up so often. It's going to be really bothersome. So I'm not sure if I want to do that right now, but I could to really remedy that. But I think for now, I'll let the entire league play out as is without any big trades. Because usually star players aren't ever traded, it's just like role players, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. And as mentioned, I am going to switch Mac Boyd's secondary position back to shooting guard, but I think he'll probably still play a little bit at a power forward if Matthew Rhodes is not on the court and Boyd is, but we'll see about that. I do plan to also change our third uniform, but I'm still waiting for the new logos to be uploaded, so we'll have that change hopefully before opening day. Before I set our lineup and stuff, I am going to change our playbook once again to a random one. I'm gonna go back to the first couple teams and just kind of scroll back and forth with my eyes closed. And we're gonna end up with the Rockets playbook. There you go. Okay. Rockets playbook, that's our go-to. Going to keep everything else as it is, and now we can adjust our lineup. So this is what I've drawn up for the game plan going into year 8. We're going to give Mac Boyd 36 minutes a game, as he usually does get. And he will play a lot of power forward, especially when Rhodes is not in the game there in the first quarter. Otherwise, Boyd's playing at the 2. Kuminga at the 3. Jovanovic at the 1, of course, getting 33 minutes of action. Rhodes at 30 minutes. Jalen Duren at 33. So Rhodes will only play power forward. We're going to let Agbaji play the 2 spot whenever Boyd is not on the court. And then for Anunoby, he will play the 2 spot as well, but also will play some at the 3. Wendell Moore will also be playing in both forward positions because he can play power forward. He's a bit undersized for it, but because I want to start Rhodes, that does open up that chance for a smaller player to play down there. So we could go a little bit smaller ball when we've got more play on the 4. We'll have Charles Bassey be backing up Jalen Duren whenever he's not out there, and Wilson Towns to back up Yovi as well. All 5 bench players will get pretty much the same playing time, it looks like, at least for now. So there you have it, folks. That is the off-season. Those were all the moves. Our first game against the new expansion teams comes against the Breeze at home on the 28th. And our first game against the Pittsburgh Force is not until the 13th of January. So we got a long way to go until either of those teams will show up on the docket. But I do plan to go through the regular season a bit faster than we're used to. Probably only 5 or 6 episodes because I do want to try and get as much done here as we can. Because I want to see as much of Boyd's career as possible before we're done here and have to go to the long-term sim. But we're going to open up against the OKC Thunder. We already looked over all the new teams, all the different moves that were made. According to the intel, though, across the league, we are contending. So are the Brooklyn Nets. So are the Denver Nuggets. The Pacers are buying. Pelicans rebuilding despite their roster being pretty solid. Pistons rebuilding. Raptors buying. Rockets buying. They have a pretty good roster with Giannis and Jalen Green and all those guys. Sonics buying. They've been a playoff team for several years. Spurs contending. Suns rebuilding. OKC contending as well, which is why we're going to face them here in our next episode. Timberwolves buying. Trailblazers rebuilding. Warriors contending. Obviously, they have one of the best rosters across the entire sport. The Wizards are buying. Sixers buying. Breeze rebuilding. Bucks rebuilding. Bulls rebuilding. Cavs contending. Celtics rebuilding. Clippers buying. The Force are buying. Grizzlies buying. Hawks buying. Heat buying. Hornets buying. Jazz rebuilding. Kings buying. Knicks rebuilding. Lakers buying. Magic buying. Mavs rebuilding. And then back to us contending. So yeah, a road game to open the season as champions. Don't see that very often, but I guess that's how the schedule goes. Should be a lot more competitive this year with the slider changes, the trades that we made, 4 different teams, the signings that other teams made, the draft picks where there were no trades being made during the draft, and us kind of arguably getting worse, but a couple of key signings like Wendell Moore and Agbaji, I think, will kind of keep our team in the contending pool of teams. But excited for the changes going forward. I will hopefully have that 3rd jersey uploaded and done by the time we get into opening day, because I might want to wear it for opening day. That could be a fun uniform to wear, because the logo is pretty damn cool. Very different from our current one. But that's going to be it for today, folks. Thanks for watching as always. Please like the video, subscribe, and please leave your comments down below, your thoughts on not only the moves that we made as the team, but the moves that I made to hopefully improve the competitiveness across the entire league. Were the trades I made for different teams right? Were they good trades? Was it smart to add 2 new expansion teams to just kind of, revitalize the series? Who knows? But we're going to go into year 8 next time around, guys. I'll see you there. Peace out, and have a good day.